My fiancé said, "I think we should pause the engagement. I need time to figure out if you're truly right for me." I told him, "Take all the time you need." He believed he was the one in control. But when he walked into the apartment that evening, he realized things had already ended hours earlier. Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 36 years old, and I've always believed relationships rarely collapse in a single explosive moment. Most of the time, they unravel quietly, slowly, in small hesitations, unfinished conversations, and the strange silence that settles between two people before either of them admits what is happening. That was how it happened with Adrian. We had been together for almost 4 years and engaged for nearly 1. From the outside, we looked stable. We had routines, shared bills, a wedding spreadsheet, half-finished guest lists, and conversations about venues and dates that only happen when two people believe the future is already decided. For a long time, I believed it too. Not because everything was perfect, but because nothing seemed broken enough to question. At first, the change was subtle. Adrian took longer to answer simple questions. He paused whenever I brought up the wedding. He looked distracted when our future became too specific. One night, I asked whether he preferred October or November for the ceremony. He stared at his phone before saying, "Either one's fine." It should have meant nothing, but Adrian used to care about building things with me. Suddenly, every future plan felt like something he was listening to from across a room. Then there was Lena. Her name appeared casually at first, a college memory, an old friend group, a passing comment about how Lena always hated winter. Lena was his ex-girlfriend. Serious relationship, long history. The kind of past people insist is over while still carrying small pieces of it in quiet places. I didn't feel threatened at first. Adrian had always been certain about us, until he wasn't. He became protective of his phone. Not obvious, not dramatic, just careful. Turning the screen away, smiling faintly at messages he never explained, responding late at night after he thought I was asleep. One Friday, he came home wearing an old cologne I hadn't smelled in years, the one he wore when we first started dating. I looked at him in the kitchen while he loosened his tie, and something cold settled in my chest. People don't accidentally return to old versions of themselves, not when they're about to get married. The conversation happened on a Tuesday evening. No argument, no tears, no visible tension. That made it worse. We were eating takeout on the couch when Adrian muted the television and sat forward. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said. I set my food down. He avoided my eyes, then finally looked at me. "I think we should pause the engagement." The words landed too calmly, like he had practiced them before handing them to me. Then he added, "I need time to figure out if you're really the right choice for me." That sentence changed everything. Not the engagement, everything. Because there is a difference between struggling together and stepping back to evaluate whether the person beside you is still worth choosing. One keeps the relationship alive, the other quietly removes its foundation. Adrian thought he was asking for space. What I heard was, "Wait while I decide if you are enough." He looked nervous, almost hopeful, like he expected questions, tears, negotiation, but something inside me went still. "What are you thinking?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment, then I said, "Take all the time you need." He blinked. "That's it?" "What else would there be?" He leaned back, clearly unsettled by my calm. "I just don't want to make the wrong decision," he said. "Marriage is permanent. I need clarity." On the surface, it sounded responsible. But what he was really saying was not, "I want us to be stronger." It was, "I'm not sure I want you enough." Outside, rain tapped against the apartment windows. Adrian kept explaining himself in softer language. "I just need time. I don't want to regret anything. This doesn't mean I stopped loving you." But every sentence confirmed what I already understood. He thought uncertainty was something time could solve. I understood it had already answered the question. And while Adrian believed he was taking control of the future, I was quietly realizing I no longer needed his decision. The next morning, the apartment looked the same. His shoes still sat by the door. The coffee machine still clicked on automatically. Our life still had the shape of a relationship. But emotionally, something had already been removed. Adrian moved carefully around the kitchen, watching me without asking what he really wanted to know. "You sleep okay?" "Fine." "You sure?" I nodded. That seemed to bother him more than anger would have. Before leaving, he kissed the top of my head. The gesture felt unfamiliar, not because it was new, but because now it felt like someone reenacting intimacy from memory. "Call me later?" he asked. "Maybe." He hesitated. Then he left. The silence after that didn't feel empty. It felt clear. Over the next several days, we continued pretending life had not shifted. We still shared the apartment, still discussed groceries, still moved around each other like nothing irreversible had happened. But Adrian had already repositioned me in his life. I felt it in the way he paused before touching me, the way he avoided wedding plans, the way his phone seemed to pull his attention like gravity. One night, while we sat across from each other eating takeout, his screen lit up beside his plate. Lena. Just one message. You still awake? Adrian grabbed the phone too quickly. Who was that? I asked. He swallowed. Nobody important. Nobody important. People always say that about the person quietly becoming important again. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse him. By then I wasn't searching for proof. I was watching the truth reveal itself. He started going to the gym late, bought new shirts, wore that old cologne more often. Even his posture changed, like he was trying to reconnect with a younger, freer version of himself. One morning, he told me he needed the day to think. I just need space to clear my head, he said while putting on his jacket. I looked at him. Do you realize how cruel this feels? His expression tightened. I'm trying to be honest with you. No, I said. You're trying to keep me emotionally available while you figure out whether something else feels better. His jaw flexed. That's not fair. Fair. As if fairness meant asking someone to remain suspended while you reconsidered their value. After he left, I sat alone in the apartment for a long time. No crying, no collapse. Just the quiet understanding that most of what we had built depended on one thing. The belief that we were moving toward the same future. Once that belief disappeared, everything else became props. That afternoon, I began packing. Not impulsively, deliberately. Clothes, books, bathroom products, small objects that had blended into our shared life so quietly I hadn't noticed how much of myself was scattered through that apartment. Then I found the small notebook where we had once written possible baby names after drinking wine on the balcony. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed it and placed it in Adrian's pile. Those dreams belonged to a version of us that no longer existed. By evening, the apartment no longer felt like ours. It felt resolved. I walked through it one last time, sat at the kitchen counter, and wrote a note. You asked for time. I didn't need it. That was all. Anything more would have invited a conversation, and there was nothing left to discuss. A few hours later, while I was checking into a hotel across town, my phone started vibrating. Adrian. Again. 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 Then the voicemails came. Evelyn, where are you? Can you please call me back? The third message sounded different. Afraid. And for the first time since asking for space, Adrian finally understood I had given him exactly what he requested. I didn't answer that night, or the next morning. His messages shifted quickly. This isn't what I meant. You're overreacting. We need to talk like adults, then. Please call me back. And finally, I didn't think you'd actually leave. That message told me everything. He thought I would wait. He thought my loyalty was a room he could step out of and return to whenever he felt ready. I stayed at the hotel for almost a week before renting a small apartment across the city. It had plain walls, large windows, and no memories attached to the furniture. It didn't feel lonely. It felt clean. About 10 days after I left, my friend Naomi met me for dinner. You look calmer than I expected, she said. I am calmer. That's concerning. I smiled faintly. I think I panicked before I left. After that, I just understood. Naomi studied me. Do you think there's someone else? I looked down at my drink. I think there's a version of himself he misses. She hesitated. There's something I should tell you. My stomach tightened. I saw Adrian last weekend, at that rooftop bar near West Avenue. I already knew before she finished. He was with Lena. The late-night texts, the old cologne, the sudden energy, the hesitation around marriage, everything rearranged itself into one clear picture. What did they look like? I asked. Naomi answered carefully. She looked relaxed. And Adrian? Nervous. That hurt more than if she had said happy. Nervous meant stakes. That night, I sat alone replaying moments I had dismissed before. Adrian joking with friends. Maybe I should run before it's too late. Adrian closing his laptop too quickly when I walked into the room. Adrian growing quiet whenever our wedding became real. Then, 12 days after I left, Lena messaged me. Hi, Evelyn. I know this is uncomfortable, but I think you deserve to know the truth. My heartbeat slowed. Another message appeared. Adrian told me you left. I don't think he's being honest with you about everything. Then another. I didn't know how serious things had become between you two until recently. And then the sentence that changed everything. I think Adrian was trying to decide between his past and his future. I stared at those words for a long time, then I typed back. What exactly did he tell you? Lena asked to call. Her voice surprised me. She didn't sound smug or territorial. She sounded tired. I'm really sorry, Evelyn, she said. For what exactly? For becoming part of something I didn't realize was this serious. She told me Adrian had reached out months earlier, randomly. Something online reminded him of her. At first it was catching up. Old friends, old stories, life. Then he started talking about me. He never said you were a bad person, Lena said carefully. How generous, I said. But he sounded lost. Lost, not unhappy, not trapped, lost. He kept talking about how fast life was moving, she continued. Marriage, stability, responsibility, like he woke up and realized his future had already been chosen. And suddenly, I understood. Adrian wasn't searching for another woman. He was searching for another version of himself. Did he want you back? I asked. Lena went quiet. Not directly, but indirectly. He kept bringing up old memories, old trips, old apartments, old versions of himself. And you? No, she said immediately. Talking to him again mostly reminded me why we ended. That answer startled me. He romanticizes the past whenever the present makes him uncomfortable, Lena said. I don't think this was ever really about me. Then what was it about? He's terrified that choosing one future means losing every other possibility. That sentence settled deep inside me. The hesitation, the nostalgia, the reconnecting, the old cologne, the careful distance. Adrian wasn't comparing me to Lena. He was comparing commitment to freedom. Lena admitted she had stopped replying consistently 2 weeks before I left. Why? Because I realized he wasn't reconnecting with me. He was escaping something, and I didn't want to become the fantasy he used to destroy his real relationship. For the first time, I almost broke. Not from jealousy, from the terrible sadness of realizing Adrian had risked us for a door that wasn't even open. Later that evening, Adrian texted, "Please meet me, just once." I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, "One conversation." He answered instantly, "Thank you." But I already knew something he didn't. This meeting wasn't going to save us. It was going to end us completely. We met 3 days later at a quiet cafe downtown near the river. I arrived first because I needed to know what I felt before seeing his face again. Then Adrian walked in. He looked exhausted, not messy, not dramatic, just worn down, like regret had aged him in private. When he saw me, relief crossed his face. That was when I realized he still thought this could be reversed. He sat across from me. Hi. Hi. The silence felt like a stranger sitting between us. Finally, he said, "I've been worried about you." I almost laughed. Concern always sounds different when it arrives after the damage. "I'm fine." "You disappeared." "No," I said. "I left." His jaw tightened. "I didn't think things would escalate this far." "There it is," I said quietly. He frowned. "What?" "You still think my leaving was the escalation, not what you did." He looked down. "I thought we would take some time, breathe, maybe figure things out. You thought I'd wait." "That's not—" "It is." I leaned back. "You thought I would stay emotionally available while you decided whether your future with me was good enough. That's not fair, Evelyn." "You keep saying fair." I was confused. "No," I said. "You were uncertain. And uncertainty is not a small thing when someone is planning to marry you." He went silent. "I never wanted to lose you," he said finally. "I believe that." He looked surprised. "But wanting to keep me is not the same as being sure about me." His face tightened. "Then why did you need time?" I asked. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence answered better than words. Then I said Lena's name. His expression changed immediately. "I knew it," he said. "You think this is about her." "Isn't it?" "No, Lena just happened to be there." That made it worse. Because if Lena had simply been there, then he had destroyed our engagement, not for love, not for passion, not for anything real, just possibility. "I talked to her," I said. His face strained. "She contacted you?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "The truth." He looked away. I watched him for a moment. "You know what she understood before you did?" He stayed silent. "You weren't reconnecting with her. You were reconnecting with the version of yourself that existed before commitment started feeling permanent. Adrian stared at me like I had spoken a thought he had been too afraid to name. Finally, he whispered, "I think I lost myself somewhere." For the first time, I felt sad for him, because I believed him, but sincere confusion still leaves real damage. "I would have helped you through that," I said. His eyes filled. "I know." "No," I said gently. "I don't think you do. You didn't come to me when you got scared. You stepped outside the relationship and looked backward. That's not what I wanted." "Maybe not, but it's what you did." He looked devastated now. "I thought asking for space was the responsible thing." "You weren't asking for space," I said. "You were asking for emotional insurance." His face tightened. "You wanted the freedom to question everything while keeping me safely in place in case you decided to come back." He covered his face with one hand. "I made a mistake." "I know." Then he looked at me with the kind of panic that only comes when someone finally sees the door closing. "Please tell me this can still be fixed." There it was. Hope. Too late, but real. "Adrian," I said, "the relationship ended the moment you started evaluating whether I was worth choosing." "That's not what I was doing." "Yes, it was." "I love you," he said suddenly. The words landed between us like something fragile arriving after the room had already burned down. And maybe that was the tragedy. I believed him. But love without steadiness becomes dangerous. It makes you hold on while the ground disappears. "That's what makes this so sad," I said. His expression crumbled. Then he asked the question he had been afraid to ask all along. "Was there ever a chance you would have stayed?" I held his gaze. "Yes." Hope flashed across his face. Then I finished. "Before you asked me to prove I was worth choosing." The silence after that was enormous. For the first time, Adrian understood what actually destroyed us. Not Lena, not wedding pressure, not fear. The moment he turned me from partner into possibility, I no longer felt safe inside the future we had built. "I never meant to hurt you like this," he said. "I know." That was the hardest part. Cruel people are easier to leave. Confused people make you grieve the person they almost were. "I thought if I stepped back, I'd come back clearer," he said. "You probably would have." He looked at me. "But relationships don't survive being placed on hold while one person explores uncertainty." His jaw tightened. "I just needed time." "No," I said softly. "You needed reassurance that other possibilities still existed before fully committing to one life." He leaned back and stared out the cafe window, then whispered, "I think I ruined the best thing I ever had." I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad, because once, Adrian had been the safest place in my life. And now we were sitting across from each other like strangers explaining the autopsy of something we used to call love. "So that's it?" he asked. "Yes." His eyes filled slowly. "You had already left emotionally before I ever moved out," I said quietly. He swallowed hard. "I know." "No," I said, "I don't think you did." Another silence passed. Then he asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I thought carefully. "I don't think you're a bad person, Adrian, but you were willing to emotionally risk me while figuring yourself out. I can forgive that someday, but I can't build a marriage on it." That was when he finally broke, not loudly, just quietly, like something inside him accepted. There was no version of this conversation where he left with me, still beside him. Eventually, I stood. He looked up. "Will I ever see you again?" "Probably." His expression softened. "But not like this." I left the cafe without looking back. Not because I wanted to seem strong, because some endings become harder if you turn around even once. The weeks afterward were painful, but peaceful. I moved into a new apartment with more sunlight and fewer ghosts. Adrian still reached out occasionally. "Hope you're okay. Saw something that reminded me of you." "I'm sorry." I never answered with anger, but I stopped answering with emotion. A few months later, Naomi asked me, "Do you think Adrian regrets it?" "Yes." "How do you know?" I looked out the restaurant window. Because he thought asking for time would give him clarity. "And?" I smiled faintly. Hesitation was already the answer. Looking back now, I understand it clearly. Adrian believed he was pausing the future long enough to decide whether he truly wanted it. But love does not survive being treated like a temporary option. And the moment someone asks whether you are worth choosing, they've already stopped protecting the future they once promised to build with you.